Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that among the 3 types of defilements, Anusaya Kilesa are the latent or dormant form of defilements. So long as the latent or dormant form of defilements have not been totally removed, abandoned, or eradicated, it generates continuous arising of kilesa defilements throughout many existences. If the mind is left uncontrolled by mindfulness, if the mind is uncontrolled in 1 hour, there will be 3,600 seconds of defilements arising. If the person lacks control, if the one does not control one's body, speech and mind, and if one lets one life go freely, the kilesa defilements will arise by leaps and bounds. And if the person's mind is not upright, if there is ayoniso manasikara, if the person does not have wise attention, there will not be any control, and thus only unwholesomeness will arise. When one comes across desirable objects, there will be lobha, greed. When one comes across undesirable objects, there will be dosa, anger, hatred. And if one is not mindful by the practice of satipatthana, there will be delusion, and it is called aññānapakha. One does not know. Aññānupakha. One does not know the true nature. One knows wrongly, and one does not know correctly. So it is moha, delusion. And based on this moha, unwholesome deeds will arise. If lobha, dosa and moha are arising more than ordinary, it will be extreme, and there will not be any control, and there can be obsession in the mind, and they can also lead to transgression, and unwholesomeness will arise continuously. In one day, in 24 hours, apart from the time that one is fast asleep, the other times, one is wasting time. One is wasting time with unwholesomeness. There will be unwholesomeness rooted in lobha, dosa and moha, and one is wasting one's time with unwholesomeness. This happens because one has not totally eradicated kilesa defilements. Defilements have not been weakened. Defilements have not been abandoned. One does not know the way to remove defilements. Even if the person knows the way, but if one does not put it into practice, then the mind will be weak and tender. When the mind is weak and tender, it will not have any resistance. It will not have any defense. And Sayadaw will continue to explain on Anusaya Kilesa. Sayadaw compares Anusaya Kilesa to the malaria. If a person is inflicted with malaria, the person has high fever, like 104 or 106, and sometimes the patient even lose consciousness. And due to the illness, due to the high fever, the patient can also see illusions. In order to bring the fever down, the others have to give the patient ice baths, put ice baths on the forehead to keep the fever down. And the physicians have to prescribe the patient medicine to bring down the fever. So this high fever is compared to Videkama Kilesa, transgressive defilements. So such kind of high fever can even cause death, and it can also cause unconsciousness to the patient. When the patient is given medicine and also ice baths, the fever comes down to 102 or 100, and the patient has to be given more medicine to totally bring down the fever. So after some time, the fever is down, about 2 or 3 days, and then the fever comes up again. So the fever is intermittent. So Sayadaw has taken care of patients with malaria. So Sayadaw has seen patients like that. The fever is intermittent. There may be no fever for 2-3 days, and then again the fever comes back. So while the patient has malaria, the patient feels very cold, quivering, having chills. Many layers of blanket does not help the patient to keep warm. And again, the fever goes down for a few days, then fever comes back again. In this way, the fever is intermittent. But as the patient keeps on taking medicine, the fever totally gets cured, and the fever does not come back again, and the patient is totally cured. So Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive form of defilements, if one can keep it under control, it does not lead to Videkama Kilesa, transgressive defilements. So when one has calmed the defilements, one's body, speech and mind will be calm, and there will be wholesome deeds. When wholesomeness are arising, there will not be unwholesomeness. Videkama Kilesa, transgressive defilements, have to be prevented from arising. And Priyuttana Kilesa, obsessive form of defilements that manifest in the mind, should be prevented and cured. So when one is suppressing the defilements, when the defilements do not manifest in the mind, speech or body, some people think whether the defilements have been uprooted. But if there is lack of mindfulness, the defilements arise again. So if the person is not being mindful, there will be dukkha aññāna. If one is not being mindful, one will not know dukkha satya, the truth of suffering. Not discerning dukkha satya, it will be aññāna, or in other words, avidya, ignorance. One does not know, and one knows wrongly. It is moha, delusion. If one does not have moral shame or moral fear from kilesa defilements, there will be ahirika and anuttapa, lack of moral shame and moral fear. Not being mindful, there will also be uddaca, restlessness. So at the moment one is not being mindful, there will be at least moha, ahirika, anuttapa, and uddaca. At the moment one is not being mindful, there will be delusion, lack of moral shame, lack of moral fear, and restlessness. So these are priyuttana kilesa, obsessive defilements. At the moment one is being mindful, these defilements are lying latent and dormant. But when one is not being mindful, when the person comes across desirable objects, greed arises. When one comes across undesirable objects, there can be anger, aversion. And also there can be other defilements such as envy, jealousy. So based on anusaya kilesa, based on latent and dormant form of defilements, if one is lacking control, the defilements will arise by leaps and bounds. At the moment one is being mindful, these defilements are lying dormant. But when there is lack of mindfulness, these defilements will resurface. So when the patient takes medicine, the whole course of medicine, the fever will totally be gone, and the fever will not come back. In the same way, when anusaya kilesa, latent, dormant form of defilements, have been totally uprooted, the defilements will not resurface. So this has been compared to the example of treating malaria, curing malaria. In the world, there are major illnesses such as smallpox, plague, malaria, tuberculosis, and nowadays there is the incurable disease like AIDS. Most of the people are being frightened of these illnesses. Medical experts do medical research to cure illnesses, and when they have found the cure to illnesses, they announce that they have found the cure. So they invent medicine, make research, and if the medicine works, then they announce that they have found the cure, and people are happy to hear that the illnesses can be cured. If there is a place where the illness is breaking out, then the medical experts advise the people to avoid going to such kind of places inflicted with disease. So, if there is a place where the malaria breaks out, then one should avoid oneself from going to that place. In the same way, Buddha advised the beings to avoid oneself from gross defilements. In order to avoid the gross defilements, one should abstain from certain things, and it is called Viramani, abstinence. So by abstaining, one can remove gross defilements, and thus there will not be transgression by body or speech. So one's bodily behavior, verbal behavior will be gentle and cultured by refraining from transgression. The defilements that manifest in the mind should be cured and suppressed, and one should practice Satipatthana meditation in order to suppress and cure obsessive defilements that arise in the mind. In order to cure, one should be mindful at the moment of arising, and one should be mindful at the moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. So one should prevent the defilements from arising, and if the defilements arise, one should cure it right away by being mindful. So Buddha had given way how to prevent and how to cure these defilements. One should practice Satipatthana meditation in order to prevent, in order to cure the defilements. So in the world, the illnesses should be avoided, prevented, cured, and suppressed. And some of the illnesses have totally been cured. Some of the diseases, illnesses have even become extinct. So nowadays, there has not been any news about smallpox. Smallpox has become extinct in the world. And also tuberculosis. There have been rare cases of TB, but now more cases have shown up with TB. So the medical experts have invented medicine to cure illnesses. In the same way, Buddha had given ways in order to cure, in order to suppress and uproot the defilements. First, the defilements have to be weakened by Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge. Insight knowledge weakens the defilements gradually. And when Vipassana insight becomes mature, one attains Magga Jnana, path knowledge. By attaining path knowledge, one uproots relevant defilements. So practicing Vipassana meditation, one develops knowledge and one is weakening the defilements. Anusaya kilesa, latent dormant defilements, are weakened by developing Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge. The defilements that have been weakened by Vipassana knowledge will be abandoned totally when one attains Ariya Magga Jnana, path knowledge. Just as illnesses cannot be totally cured all at once, one has to take medicine and the illness will gradually become weakened and finally the illness will be cured. So one has to take medicine regularly in order to get rid of the illness, and the illness will totally be gone. In the same way, Buddha had prescribed 3 kinds of medicine in order to abandon 3 types of defilements. Just as when the appropriate medicine is given, the illness will be cured. In the same way, by practicing the 3 trainings prescribed by the Buddha, one can abandon the defilement. So Jaraji will explain how the Anusaya kilesa, latent dormant form of defilements, will be weakened by Vipassana insight and how they can be totally uprooted by Ariya Magga Jnana, path knowledge. If one does not practice Satipatthana meditation, the Nama Rupa, the mind and matter that is arising at the sixth sense door will not be discerned. Without the practice of Satipatthana, one will not know distinctly that Nama mentality is the Dhamma. Nama mentality is the one that can cognize, that knows objects, and Rupa materiality is the one that does not know, that cannot cognize. So without the practice of Satipatthana, one cannot discern mind and matter. Without practice, one think of it as just one, not being able to differentiate mind and matter. So they take of it as the body, being, I, you, man or women. So they have the wrong view of personality, wrong view of being, personality. If one is not practicing Satipatthana meditation, one cannot know distinctly between mind and matter. And they have the wrong view that in each and every being there is soul or atta, jiva atta, and they believe that there is jiva atta in each of the beings. And they believe that it is the jiva atta which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. So there are 2 kinds of atta. The first one is jiva atta, individual soul. Jiva Atta is believed to be Paticharira. Jiva Atta is believed to be living in each and every being. So they believe in the living soul, and they take of it as they know the Atta differs from one creature to another. If the creature is big, the Atta is big. If the creature is small, the Atta is small. So the Atta of an elephant will be big. And Vipu, they believe that the Jiva Atta has powers, and they believe that the Atta, Jiva Atta, is governing, controlling, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and so on. And they also believe that Jiva Atta is nature, permanent. So they believe even though the body may perish, but the Atta does not perish. The Atta shifts from the old body to the new one. So they cling on to this wrong view of Jiva Atta. And even some of the Burmese have this wrong view of Jiva Atta. They believe in soul. And also in the West, people believe in soul. So such kind of wrong view, believing in soul, is anusya kilesa, latent, dormant, defilement. So long as one has not become a Sotapanna, the stream enterer, such wrong view will exist. In order to weaken the wrong view of Jiva Atta, one has to discern the Nama Rupa, mind and matter. By discerning mind and matter, the wrong view of Jiva Atta will be suppressed. And there is also another kind of Atta, Brahma Atta, the Supreme Soul. The Brahma Atta, Supreme Soul, is believed to be governing, controlling the Jiva Atta. So they believe in Mahabrahma, the Creator, and the Creator is believed to be Ishvara, governing, controlling everything. So other beings have to be in accordance to the wish of the Mahabrahma. If the Mahabrahma say live, then the beings have to live. If the Creator creates the beings to die, the beings have to die. And also they believe that the Supreme Soul knows everything, and there is no two, there is one and only Creator. They say they only have one and only God. And they say Sukha Dukkha Dirahito, the Creator, the Paramatta, is neither happy nor suffering. And they believe that there is no definite shape, there is no substance, no definite shape of the Paramatta. So the wrong view of Jiva Atta and the Brahma Atta has been seated in the person. Just knowing, discerning Nama Rupa, mind and matter, one may still think that it is permanent, and one may still think that it is pleasant to be seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And even though the body perishes, the Atta, that is permanent, that is good, will still exist. So if one does not develop knowledge, one will still have such wrong views, and such wrong views are anusaya kilesa, latent, dormant, defilements. In order to remove such kind of wrong view, such kind of latent, dormant defilements, one should be mindful of every arising object. One should be mindful at the moment of arising. Not being mindful, the defilements will arise. By being mindful, the defilements have no chance to arise. And by knowing, the defilements will be suppressed momentarily. What really exists in the beings are the nama and rupa, mentality and materiality. So it is not learned through the theory, or it is not learned through imagination. When one knows distinctly between nama and rupa, mentality and materiality, through the experience of practice, one removes the wrong view of jiva atta. Discerning mind and matter, one understands that what really exists is mind and matter. There is no other thing such as living soul. Only if one understands through one's experience of practice, one can remove the wrong view of jiva atta, the wrong view that has been following throughout the round of existence. And when the nama rupa, mentality and materiality arise due to relevant cause. There are many causes that generate rupa, materiality, such as kama, citta, udu and ahara. The kama, deeds, citta, consciousness, udu, the temperature, climate, ahara, nutriments are generating materiality, and also there are many other causes. But if one does not know cause and effect, one has the wrong view of Mahabrahma creating. Not knowing that the nama rupa phenomena are arising due to relevant cause, one may think that Mahabrahma is creating. By practicing Satipatthana meditation, when one develops knowledge, understanding cause and effect, one understands that there is no Mahabrahma creating. One understands that relevant causes are giving rise to relevant effects. In this way, discerning cause and effect, one removes the wrong view of Paramatta, the Supreme Soul. And by discerning impermanence, one removes the wrong view of permanence. Discerning that things are suffering, one removes the wrong view of good and pleasant. In this way, the wrong views will be removed. One will no longer cling to wrong views when one discerns by practice. Discerning correctly, one suppresses anusaya kilesa, latent, dormant defilements. Just as the medical experts are finding ways, and these medical experts are suppressing, curing illnesses. In the same way, by developing knowledge, one can suppress latent, dormant defilements. And Sayadaw will continue to explain tomorrow. Sadhu, sadhu,